Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today for the workshop session, Design It, the Fundamental of Design Thinking. So shall we give like another 3 more minutes? So if there is anyone else joining us at the moment, so we can give them a bit more time, all right? So until that, you may work on your technical settings, like if you would like to change your display name, like putting your name at the front and your company's name at the back, if you are from the if you're representing any organization. So it'll be easier for any interaction or networking purposes, all right? So let us make some time for the technical settings and we will begin the session at 2:05, okay? All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so I think it's 2:05 already, and then we have like around 25 participants, including us. Okay, so without further ado, let us begin the session, all right? So a very good afternoon to ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining our event today. And as I mentioned, you are joining the workshop titled Design It, the Fundamental of Design Thinking by UN Global Compact Malaysia Brunei and our valuable knowledge partner, Tata Consultancy Services. Thank you very much. And I am Bhavani from UN Global Compact Malaysia and Brunei, your facilitator for today. And with me here, I have Miss Fakira, who will be co-facilitating today's session and will be assisting you with the event flow, right? So once again, thank you very much for joining us today and making this happen. Okay, so before we move on to the session, I would like to make some housekeeping notes. Okay, so the first is kindly mute your good self if you're not speaking, and yeah, if you would like to share your thoughts or if you would like to interact with us in any ways or during the activities or during the Q&A session, you can unmute yourself, and also don't forget to turn on your camera because it will be more engaging and we can get to know each other, all right? So last but not least, as I mentioned earlier, kindly rename yourself so we also get to know each other and also who are joining with us today. So without further ado, I shall pass to our trainer, Ms. Sharmila Bijor from Tata Consultancy Services to deliver her presentation and to officially begin the session. Over to you, Ms. Sharmila.
Thank you, Bhavani, and welcome everyone. I hope you've had a great time through these sessions and webinars that UNGC have been having over the last few days. And thank you, UNGC, for for this opportunity to connect with like-minded organizations and people working in the sustainability space, which is even at TCS, it's an integral part, and we're very passionate about it. Um, just a quick, let me just share my screen and we can get started. Yeah, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, great. Right, so let's just dive into it. A quick introduction about myself, like who am I? Well, I am I have been a professional for the last 24 plus 25 plus years. Most of my career I've been in multimedia, and it's only in the recent past, about 5 years ago, that I moved into the information technology business, and I've been at TCS. I currently head their design thinking and user experience design for the APAC region, which has, interestingly given exposed me to a range of projects and experiences. The most recent of which was Seed Lab, which was a entrepreneurial program that we launched with Petronas at Malaysia, and it was a 12-month program, which is now we are in the second cohort. Apart from being in the IT field and the multimedia, I am a passionately outdoor person. I love trekking, running, swimming, anything that has to do with outdoors is a huge attraction for me. So having said that, I just wanted a quick, a quick intro, if possible. If some of you can just share which area do you work in, or what is what is your passion? Anyone, just we need some icebreakers, we need some participants to make this more interactive.
Is there anyone wants to introduce yourself?
Okay, I think people are still warming up, so
Yes,
I'll
yes.
give you some time. Maybe as the session goes, you can you can participate some more. So let's take a quick look at some very interesting sustainable solutions that have that are out there. One of the interesting ones was that there is let's assume there's a village not too far from Hyderabad, which is a city in India, and there the women carry water over their heads or over their waists, in a huge a pot, and the government decided to do something about it, and bring portable water to them. The challenge that they found was that the women would be, they would walk a long distance to get this free water from a pond nearby, and they would walk back. They knew that the water was not safe because it was, it was in an open pond, and yet they continue to do it because for generations their family would go to that pond and use that pond for the water for drinking and for washing purposes. And they would carry about 3 gallons of, the container was about 3 gallons you know now the solution for this, the government thought, is that they need safe drinking water closer to home. So they set up a water treatment facility in a nearby, slightly larger village. However, they found out that while the immediate vicinity people made use of that facility for clean drinking water, this woman, let's call her, Shanti, she continued to walk that 3 kilometer distance to get water and bring it back. So when they went back to, ask her why was she not using the clean drinking water that the government was giving, and she said that, there were the pitfall was that the government, the treatment center insisted on giving a 5 gallon jerry can, which they provided to all the people who took water from their facility. They also had to pay a monthly cost. So the water came with a price. It was a nominal cost per 5 gallon, but it was a cost that they had to pay upfront. So they had to pay for a month, and they would have to punch their card every time they went and collected water. So the lady said that, look, it makes no sense for me because I don't need five gallons of water. I need only 3. So I will be wasting water and paying for it. Where I get free water, here I have to pay for it, and I have to pay upfront. I don't have the money to pay upfront for this water. And she said that, the jerry can is very cumbersome for me. As a, I am comfortable carrying the weight either on my waist or on my head, but I don't know, the jerry can is not designed for me to carry in either of these positions, which is what I am used to. So what happened was that, this treatment plant that was set up, there was only a select few could take advantage of it, while it alienated the villages which were slightly beyond the immediate vicinity. So that was a huge pitfall because they didn't manage to address this issue for everybody. So again, it was a missed opportunity to design a better and inclusive system. Another interesting example is, Amazon. Amazon has pledged that by 2025, their shipment delivery, vehicles will all be electric, and their operations will be powered with 100% renewable energy. However, Amazon's biggest, threat to the environment is their packaging. They generate an estimated 465 million pounds of plastic packaging, and out of that, 20 million, almost 22 million, end up in water bodies, from rivers to lakes to ponds to the ocean. So Amazon, so it's like, though it's a large company, they have a whole lot of researchers, and they've pledged this, going using electric vehicles, but the other monster is still uh, unaddressed, which is their packaging, and that is the core of their business. Uh, and some successful ventures. This is a very interesting story of the solar panels. Now, you set up solar panels because you get solar energy, so it's a great renewable energy. However, the solar panels also have their challenge because they are out in the sun. They, over a period of time, they get heated up, and the overheating causes them to get damaged. So as a result, they have to be kind of hosed down with water to keep the temperatures lower, and then the panels will last longer. So in Gujarat, when they had to set up these panels, the government decided to set up these panels to generate solar energy. There was another challenge that they had, which is that Gujarat has a lot of water canals which they have built for irrigation, and the water, these canals are all across Gujarat. um, However, the canals also have one challenge, which is that because they are exposed to the sun, and especially the afternoons in Gujarat, whether it's winter or summers, is extremely hot. So as a result, the water, it evaporates, and the canals lose water through evaporation. So they came together, and what they decided is to merge these two solutions together. And what they did was they used the waterways, the canals, and they covered them up with the solar panels. Now, as a result, what happened is a a lot of land was freed up, because if the solar panels were on land, it would have taken up that land which otherwise could have been used for other purposes. So that was free. The land was freed up because the solar panels were placed on top of the canals, and uh, because they were on top of the canals, the condensation of the water kept the solar panels cool naturally. They didn't have to sprinkle water over those panels to keep the temperatures down. And because of the covering of the solar panels, the condensation, the evaporation of the canals was reduced, and the water would condense and go back into the canals. So it was a twofold solution where they just merged two very sustainable innovations together, and this whole scheme was launched. Similarly, this is another interesting one where in the village they have these pipes where the at a particular time of the day, the municipal corporation releases water so that the water reaches all the villages. However, these pipes invariably, they have a tap, but then they get stolen, or for whatever reason the taps never last, or the washer is loose, with the constant use, so they just leave the pipe there. Now, what would happen is that, while the municipal corporation said that, okay, the water will be released at, say, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it never happens exactly at that time. So as a result, the villagers are never sure as to when do we go and fill that water, because for the 2 hours, the water supply is there and then it stops again. Uh, and often, once the water started coming and the villagers, by the time they rushed there, a lot of water would get wasted. So what the villagers thought of is that, before they realized that before the water is about to come through the pipes, a lot of air rushes out. So they capped the pipe, and they put a little whistle in the nozzle of that pipe, right here. So every time the water was about to come and the water rushed out, the whistle would automatically start whistling, and that was an indicator to the village that, hey, the water is going to come now, so we better go there with our containers and jerry cans to fill the water. A simple concept, but it completely it stopped reduced water wastage. The villagers were more aware and knew when exactly they had to go there, and they didn't have to line up beforehand waiting for the water. Closer to home, another very a very commercially viable and sustainable business model is Airbnb, right? I mean, we all use this. A lot of us, in fact, use this because it's user friendly. There's no infrastructure cost to it. These are ready apartments. Owners who have empty apartments have a way of making a living. Rentals are low as compared to hotels, and it has a global presence. Even in the most remote place, you will find an Airbnb. So this is another extremely well thought through solution. um, so having seen all this, where does design thinking fit in, and what is design thinking? So it's a in a very simplistic manner, saying that it's a balanced approach to innovation, where we look at desirability, which is what is it that the user wants and desires, what is its feasibility, uh, and what does the idea make business sense, and is it scalable and self sustainable, and can technology support it, and can it be executed? So design thinking sits in that sweet spot in the middle, where these three key aspects overlap. What does the user want? Is it a business model that can be scaled? Can you make money out of it, and is it viable? So if all these three are not don't gel together seamlessly, the idea invariably falls short. I won't say it completely fails, but it often falls short, because then it's not able to address all the three aspects that make it that would have made it a success. So design thinking it's a human centered approach, and it's an iterative solution which is based to solving problems. So when we say human-centered approach or human-centered design, is because always the user is in the very center of everything that you design, whether it's the research that you do or the solution that you come up with or the cost of it, the accessibility of it, all that, it's steeped in human-centered design. That if you cannot tick off all these, so that the end user can use it, it will not work. And it's iterative because design thinking doesn't mean that once you come up with a solution you leave it at that. You keep testing it, because there is a constant as you iterate, you discover new things, and you continue to keep fine tuning the design. So how do you do that? So first and foremost is you understand the user, uh, and identify what the real problem is. Then you redefine the problem, and by challenging assumptions, because we very often, when we are trying to solve a problem, we just assume. Like, for example, if you see the lady who was carrying the water for a long distance, there was an assumption made from by the water treatment center that, oh, because we are so close and we are giving such healthy water access, they will just they will come. We are giving them a jerry can of 5 gallons. Everyone will come and take this. But they did not. They assumed they will come, but they did not try and understand the cultural aspect of it, saying that, okay, maybe her needs do not require her to have that much, or that she does not have the kind of money to pay upfront for a month. She can just, if it was, even if it was, there was the flexibility that whenever she wanted, she could take that 5 gallon, she would store whatever is extra and use it the next day. But if she is committed to spending X amount of money, it doesn't work for her. So, and then you create real solutions by thinking bottom up, which is this absolute, the user is your is where things begin with, and then you start adding layers to it, and you come up with a solution. You don't go top down. You don't say that, okay, I'm going to set up a water treatment center, and then I'll see who can whom I can give the water to. So the design thinking process, there are three stages, key stages. If these stages, the three key stages can further be expanded into more, but we will keep it to these, the top three stages, which is inspire, ideate, and implement. Now, what does inspire mean? Inspire is basically where you explore, you start talking to people, to the users for whom you are designing. That is the mindset for design thinking, that you ask questions. You keep asking questions till you get to the root of the problem, and you can only do that if you come from a place of empathy. When you say empathy, it means that you try and understand the pains of your user. You listen to them, you engage them through interviews, conversations, listen to not only the user but the people around it. You what is it that they want? Then you also have to observe, because just the conversation is not enough. You have to see them in their environment to understand why that particular pain point is a challenge for them, and you immerse. So when you keep doing these, keep studying them from every aspect, you are actually standing in their shoes. And when you immerse, you also try and see that, okay, what is the trend, is there any competitor in this space? What is that competitor doing? Where is he falling short? What is the technology available, so that you can come up with the solution for your user. So it's like saying that you go to a village and you tell them that, hey, um, uh, I can come up with an app that will tell you about the weather conditions. But if they don't have internet access, then the app is of no use to them. So you have to immerse yourself and try and understand every aspect of that problem that you are trying to solve. A simple example is, a shopkeeper. The difference between, now here we have these three women, or all of them are selling goods, but the difference is that when you observe, you realize that the one on the left has her own shop. She has a space which is, which she can keep an eye on, which is enclosed, and she can sell her goods on. But the other two, they are sitting on the street, they are sitting by the roadside and selling their goods, so they're completely exposed to the elements around, whether it is weather or whether it's people going by, it's traffic, it's dust. So both are sellers, but the solution, if there is a solution that has to be given, will have to take in this aspect of how do they sell their goods. Once you have, once we've got these solutions together, what we do is, sorry, I think there is a, okay, I'm just, I think there is a, I've skipped a slide, and I'll go back to the other one. So one of the tools again in empathy is when you ask questions. There is a simple tool called the 5 whys, and it's the primary goal of the 5 why is to keep digging deeper till you reach the root of the problem. Very often what people say gives you only a very a top overview. So in the 5 whys, what happens is that, for example, if we take the problem in the first the lady and the drinking water was that the problem was to bring portable, safe drinking water to the remote villages. Now, why did they want to do that? Because villagers suffer from illness due to unsafe water. But why do they suffer from illness? Because they don't, there is no immediate access to drinking water. Why is there no immediate access? Because there's no water pipeline that has been laid. And why has that not been laid? Because it's a high cost to bring water, to lay the pipeline for villages which are for one or two villages. And why is that so? Because they are too remote. They're too far in the interior, and that's why they can't be now you've gone so deep in that problem that you start thinking that, okay, now if I have to address this, what do I need to do? So then you go, we dig deeper into this, and we say, okay, the first one was that the village suffers from illness due to unsafe water, and that again will have multiple reasons. So it would be water is used from open pond. Why do they fall ill? Because they use water from exposed ponds, where it could be the weather that's affecting. There are animals around it that drink from it, or they excrete, and then that all comes into the water, and so on and so forth, and you keep digging. That is till you get to the heart of the problem. Once you know that, you also understand the and you have the human aspect that you have already spoken about, all the interviews that you've got. You then plan an empathy map. An empathy map is basically, you put, you make you segregate it into these 4 key parts, and you say, okay, what is it, what do they think and feel, what do they see, and what do they say, what do they do, what do they hear, and what do they mean. All these are very different, because often you find, when you start digging in, you'll find that when you ask people a simple question, there's a great example where Henry Ford said that, if I ask people what do they want, they would say, I want a faster horse. Because when he started making automobiles, people were going around in carriages, right? Now if people say, I want a faster horse, he had to dig deep and understand that, okay, basically what they wanted was to get from point A to point B faster. And that's why where the automobile came in, because that was definitely faster than the horse. But if he would have just if they would have just thought about, okay, they want a faster horse, they would have never come up with the solution of the automobile. So that also comes into play when you start, you put all your findings across on the empathy map, and you start understanding that, okay, what is it that they are saying, but actually what does it mean, you know. This is a persona that we create of the user, because it gives you an overview of who your user is, what are the conditions in which they live in, what is their age, what do they like, what they do not like, what is the family size, what are their skills, what are their drawbacks, what is the access that they have, their frustrations, their goals. So we always come, the user that we are designing for, we put up a persona, so you understand the user completely, and everybody in the team is aligned with that. Okay, this is the user for whom we are designing. And once you have accessed and gone through all your data and you analyzed it, you come up with your challenge statement. Basically, the challenge statement is what will dictate your solution. And your challenge statement is a simple one where it says, how might we? So, how might we? And then you fill in whatever the action is it that you want. So, if it was, say, for, Henry Ford is designing, he wants the faster horse. So, it would have been, how might we um, help people uh, move from point A to point B faster? Okay, so you have, how might we, then you add the action, then what is it that you want to do, and for whom, which is the stakeholder, and in order to is what is it that you want to change. So in order to would be so that they can move faster from point A to point B. Who is it? Your stakeholder would be the people who are going to buy the automobile. What is it that we want is that, how might we have a you know a gadget that can help them go from point A to point B. And that is your challenge statement. Once you have this challenge statement is in place, is when you get into ideation. In design thinking, one of the beauties of it is that when we do design thinking workshops, we always try and get all the stakeholders together, because it is imperative that everyone has a voice, everyone has a platform where they can put forth their expectations, their fears, and along with everyone else the solution is co-created. So when you go into ideation, what usually we do is that, so for example, if they were designing for that water treatment, you would have the women in the village, because they are invariably the women who are actually going out and filling the water. You would have the government, the local government. You would have the water treatment team. You would have whoever is financing this. You would have the husbands involved, because the husbands also want to know how far their wives, they may or may not chip in, but they want to know how far their wife has to walk, because she has other chores to do. So all these people come together, and then you put your challenge forward and you start ideating. And when we start ideating here, the idea is to just have as many ideas possible out there, because with no bias. So you put out lots of ideas, uh, and invariably, you never think first. You, whatever comes to your mind, you put your ideas out there. No idea is a bad idea. It is multidisciplinary team, which means that you have people from various aspects, various stakeholders that will be a part of that team. You differ from judgment. So if somebody else has written an idea, you always withhold. You never comment on that, there, and you never make an assumption. You just let as children, how we always just say what we feel, you just put out there, and you encourage wild ideas, because you never know which would be that disruptive idea and where it could come from. Then you try and build on ideas, on others ideas, because all you then realize that all the ideas cannot be kind of build upon, but there are some that can stand out, and what one person has come across, the other person can add value to it and can build it. And at that point in time, you ignore feasibility. You don't think about how can it be executed first. You just think about what can be this unique path breaking idea that can change lives. So let's do a quick activity. I'm sure it'll be you would need a break from my monotonous voice. What we will do is I will share a link in the chat box. Just give me a moment. And oh, there are some comments. I'm sorry. Yeah, let me just share this link. Okay. Can everyone see the link in the chat box?
Yes, yes, you can.
Okay, so if you click on that link, it will take you to a mural, to a canvas. Once you come there, I'll know, because I'm going to share, sorry, I'm going to share the screen so everyone can see. Yeah, can you see the mural now on my screen?
Yes, Miss Shamila, we can see the screen.
Okay, great.
But it's kind of like
I can see,
a box version.
yes, it's a box with these little post-its.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So is everyone in? Okay. So what I'm going to do is, as everyone else, signs in, on your top left, you have this. Okay. You have this little brick wall, which says Creativity 101. And what you can do is, I want, so these are little post-its here, these yellow, orange, they're all post-its. I want you to write, if you go on your left hand side, if you click on this, can you see this left panel slides open, and you have a text block here. So you can click on that, and I want you to come up with as many uses for a brick that you can think of. And I will give you 3 minutes. I want all of you to just write whatever it is. So you can take the text from here and you can start typing, here. Can you see that? So just take this, pull out the text from here, from this on the side, and start typing on these. Each one gets, I mean, you can write as many ideas as you want. There is no restriction. Just make sure that you put one idea on one post-it. If the post-its, if we run out of post-its, you can just pull out more from here. So if you click on the same text box, there are these post-its which you can just drag one of these and add it here. You can pull out more and keep pasting them around. So let's, shall we say, let's give you all 3 minutes. I'm starting the timer, and please just don't think I want as many ideas. The wilder, the better. Let's see what you can come up with. We want creative ways, creative uses of a brick. So I've just typed a pillow there, but you guys can just write whatever you think you can do with the brick. You can just click on the post-it. Yeah. Bhavani, you and your team can also participate.
All right, Miss Shamila.
Yes.
I'm just looking at the colors, you know, just looking at how colorful it is. Just admiring the variety of colors on my screen.
You can just click on any of the post-its and just type there. You don't need to go to the panel on the side. You can just click on it and then type here itself. We've got 1 minute left. I want everyone to put down at least one idea. Don't think too much. Uh, are there more who can't access because of a password? Because I've kept this open. The link is open. Let me just. I'm going to paste it here again. Right now, I can see only 7 people with the mural. Are the others having a challenge? I'm ignoring the time now because since a lot of you are. Think of just go wild. Don't think about if I put something, how is that feasible or viable. It's that's right now not into consideration. Oh, I can see one as a dumbbell. Nice. There's a stool or chair to hit people. Self protection, huh? As car brake. Yeah, to plant. Nice. On vacation. Any other ideas? Okay. So bungee jump. Yeah, right. Okay. So we've got some interesting ideas here. Now, what I want you to do is um, we have these little like icons here on top. if you can just pick these icons, you can just, hold them, drag them, and add it to whichever idea you like. Let's do that. You can put it on more than one idea if you like it. And we can just add some more of these. You can always duplicate them. So okay, I just see one on to barbecue. Okay, what we can do now is, all of you, any idea that you have liked here, which is not yours, somebody else's, but you think you can add to it, I want you to then move to the next canvas here. Okay, which says Creativity 101. Pick your favorite idea and add to it. So what you can do is, for example, if someone has said, a dumbbell. Okay, now you can add to this idea, and see how you can make that a more attractive product. So pick whichever idea, or if you think it's your own idea that you have liked best, you're welcome to put that idea here and build on it. You can just go on this slide, or if you want, you can also draw. If you think you can't explain it with text, you can also draw. So if you just come on the side, see there are images here. You can just pull out some image that you want, or you can use some icons. There are a whole bunch of icons that you can add, or you can just draw. So you have all these, you have text boxes, you have title, you have shapes and connectors. So all these tools are here. If you want, you can also draw. And then of course there's your regular um, pencil with which you can draw across. Is it a challenge to use these tools? Let's give 2 more minutes and see if there's anyone who wants to build on this idea. Else we will move on. But this is basically just to to see how you allow people to just put out what is the first thing that comes to their mind, have it out there, and then collaborate and build on it. We have 1 more minute. If there is something that you want to add, please do. Feel free to add to it. Okay, some are having a challenge writing on it. Yeah, it's okay. It's a new tool that all of you are using for the first time, so it's understandable. Um, let's let's move on. But this is something that you can just. It's a great website where it's a great virtual tool that you can try on. You have some free membership it gives you, where you get access to some basic tools there. You can always use it to work together with a team while we are in our virtual environments, because that's the norm now. But you can always explore that. It's called mural.co. So can you see my screen now with the ideation tools?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Yeah. So let's go back to that while we did that little activity, let's go back to the ideation flow and see what are the different kinds of tools that we use when you're doing ideation. Bhavani, do you want to take a break? We've been
I think yes, we can give a 5 minutes break to our
okay.
participants.
Yeah. So let's
Then we
take a
will come back.
5 minute break and then we can continue. Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We will see you back at 3 o'clock. All right. You may take your break now. All right, it's 3 o'clock now, and I hope everyone is here. Perhaps you can, once you are here, you can give a quick thumbs up so we know that we are here and we can begin the session. So we can move on to our next activity, right, Miss Shamila? We still have another activity.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
So if you're here, quickly give us a thumbs up so we know you are here. You can, you can get the thumbs up from the reaction menu at the bottom. All right. Okay, so let's see. Awesome, awesome. All right. Thank you, In Mingo. Thank you. So it seems like only few of them is here. Perhaps we will wait for another 1 or 2 minutes and then we will begin the session.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Shamila.
Hey, thanks. I was just checking through the chats, and I'm so glad that those who couldn't access are sharing their ideas on the chat. So thank you very much.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yep, some of them even have shared their questions. So later during the Q&A session, Ms. Shamila can answer them.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shamila.
Yeah. Meanwhile, those of you who have access to the mural board, you can keep experimenting around a little bit, because we are going to come back to that in another few minutes.
Yes, you can also post more ideas.
Yes.
All right. So if anyone just joined after the break, could you please give us a quick thumbs up so we know that you are here so we can begin the session quickly?
Yeah. Should we continue?
I think, yeah, we can proceed first, Ms. Shamila.
Okay. Yeah.
All
So
right.
thanks everyone for coming back. Appreciate it. A quick look at, what are the ideation tools. So when we left at, when you get together with your stakeholders, how can you come up with new ideas and how do you build on that? And there are some tools that we use often for ideation, just to give, it helps come up with innovative ideas, fresh new ideas. I've listed a few, and I'll just give you a quick overview of what does it mean. So the first one, which says headlines or standing in the future, is basically projecting what your product or service would look like, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years down the line. Usually you keep a goal of say 5 years, because 10 sometimes seems too far away. And in headlines, what we do is that, we pull out, we make a template of say a magazine like Forbes or the Time magazine, which is very prestigious, which is very globally acknowledged as, a sign of recognition. And then what you do is, as you say, okay, if your product or service had to appear on the headline of or the cover story of say Time magazine, what would that headline look like? So it could, if it's something in the space, for example, if it was that water treatment center, then maybe their headline would be every village every remote village in India has access to safe drinking water. Okay. Which is a very futuristic idea. But when you're saying that, every single village in India has safe drinking water, and that is what the headline reads on Time Magazine, it gives uh, uh, it uh, it gives an overview of where you want to grow, right? You project your success out there, and then you start working backwards. So when you're saying standing in the future, so that's where you're saying that, we our water treatment center, our solution is going to be so make drinking water accessible to every single village in India. That's a mammoth ask. But when you put it out there, then you start thinking, okay, if that is my aim, what do I need to do now to reach that? So that's one of the tools. The other one is storyboarding, where you can actually put, start drawing pictures, and you put a whole sequence of how the solution will play out. Or if it's word association, you generate words which associate with your ideas. Or another technique, which is, or role play. Role play, you'll see there's one little image here which shows that they've made a little dummy of a car, and they're, driving it. So maybe it's a car that is uh, you know drives by itself, or has some innovative solution that they're talking. Or there's another technique called scamper. Scamper basically is a method of lateral thinking technique, which challenges the status quo and helps you explore new possibilities. And the scamper, the S stands for substitute. You substitute uh, one technique with what else could substitute for that solution. So you go substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to use, eliminate, and reverse. So you start using your ideas, and you try and associate these lateral thinking words to your ideas. Once you have all your ideas, and you filter them, what you do is, how do you then filter them? How do you say that, okay, which of these ideas do we want to take it forward? So you put it, we call this as as the prioritization matrix. And along the vertical line, you say that it's technical difficulty, which means the feasibility of it, and the user value, that's the viability. And you start pasting your ideas on this. So the bottom left corner says, why do this particular solution? The top one says, this can wait. The one on the top right says, it's hard and important. And the easy and important one comes to your bottom right. So you divide your ideas. As you start pasting them on this matrix, you see that, okay, if I want to reach at the top right corner, extreme right corner, which could probably be your headline, the headline that you have on Time Magazine, because that's hard, it's hard to achieve, but it's extremely important. But for me to go there, what are the other ideas that I can have as low hanging fruits? So you do, on your bottom left would be, why do this? Because these would probably be ideas which are somewhat available in the market. So do you really want to reinvent the wheel? What you put on your right is, these are easy, they are low hanging fruits, they are important, and they are your quick wins, which will help you go to the next stage. And the top right is those that appear to be great, but that they are going to be extremely difficult to execute, maybe very expensive to put forward, or maybe technology doesn't exist right now for you to develop those. So those you park on the left. So immediately what happens is, all your ideas get divided, and you start segregating them in the feasibility and viability aspect. And then what could your roadmap be then? How do you achieve that headline, and how do you work your way towards that? And then you get into implementation. So implementation is basically, now you start creating prototypes, and you start testing them, because your idea has worked with all the research that you have done, and with all the brainstorming that you've done with your stakeholders. you are excited with your idea, but now you want to see that, okay, I need to start testing it, get that basic MVP together, the minimal viable product together, and start testing it with the users and seeing that, okay, have I is my product addressing the pain points that we had identified in our research. So when you go into implementation, what you do then is that you build a prototype. Now your prototype, you start off with a low fidelity prototype, which basically means that with very minimal investment, you pick out the key features of your product or service and you put a rough prototype together, and you go out in the market and you test it. While you're testing it, you also build partnerships, because no one product or service can come out on its own. You need ecosystem partners for that. So you start building that ecosystem that can support your service or your product. You identify your business model of how this is going to scale. Where does your investment come in? How do you, at what point do you break even? Who are your users and how will you tap new markets? When you do these, you also, in this process, you also fail fast, which means that when you build these prototypes, they are low fidelity, your investment is to its minimal, and you keep testing. And sometimes when you test, you realize that this solution may not be the answer. The solution that you have come up with may not be the answer, and that you need to scrap that, and then start thinking afresh. So this is the time that you can fail fast, before you've actually produced your product or your service. You've actually gone and fine tuned and poured money and time and effort into it, and then you go and release it in the market, only to find that that's not what your target user wanted. So you fail fast is in this implementation phase, is where you do the minimal viable product. You do that, you test it, and if it doesn't work, you scrap it, you move on to the next. And if it works, then you launch it, and then you continue to keep testing and validating, because as you test, you will get fresh feedback on your product or your service, and you go back to the drawing table, you fine tune your product, you go back out there and you test it. And that's how the service or the solution will keep growing, and it will continue to be accepted by your user, because now you are co-creating it with the user. The user feel, he gets that connect with you, and he values the fact that you are listening to him and you're helping solve his problems. Now the prototypes, as I said, can be from low fidelity prototypes, which is if it's an app or a website, it can be as something as simple as just drawing out these different screens on paper and testing it with the market. Or they could be this is a camera that they've made out of cardboard boxes, so that they get a touch and feel for it. Or simple with the wooden blocks or something, and you get people to use that. So we go into another activity, a quick one. You have the mural link already, right? Should I paste it again?
Let me assist you with that, Ms. Shamila.
Yes. If you can just paste that, and I will share that screen.
All right, sure.
Yeah. Now,
All right,
I want you to do, yeah, great. Let me just share that screen with you. And yes. Can you see it now? Can you see my screen? Okay, yeah. So I want to, a wallet is something that all of us use, like literally everybody. What I want you to do is I want you to design your wallet. Each of us has some or the other complain about our wallet. Either it's not big enough, it doesn't have enough pockets, or the pockets are too small, or I need to keep my coins keep spilling out, or I have too many credit cards and that makes my wallet very thick. I don't know. I mean, all of us have some or the other complaint with our wallets. So I want you to design your wallet. It can be a very quick sketch. We have, as I said, on your left, you can pull out images from here. You can just type something, and on the net, they have a library. They'll share some images with you, or you can use the draw tool. You can use the icons. Just a quick rough, we are not going to judge you with your skills to draw. So just feel free, and let's see how you want your wallet to be or look like. I mean, for me, my biggest challenge with my wallet is that I don't have anywhere to keep my house key. I just have the single key, and it always frustrates me because I end up putting it in the coin coin pouch. And then especially if it's dark, and I have to hunt for my key, and then you can't feel it in the dark because the coins also kind of have the same circular shape. So yeah, you can, let's see what is it that you would like your wallets to have. I see Bhavani is getting the hang of it now. Very good. Of drawing.
Please excuse my version of drawing because it's quite ugly, but it comes from my
Oh
mind.
no, not at all. As long as you can get your idea across, that's all we want. It's good to see people using the library of images to express.
Yes, yes. It's a express version of drawing.
Yeah.
Mine is a very old school drawing.
Oh, but nice. Don't worry. That's good enough. It tells you what you want. Oh, light up wallet. Nice. Ah, is this the wallet with Wi-Fi, or you can track it? Is it interesting? This one, images of precious ones. Nice. Great. So, whose wallet is this? Can someone explain the blue one?
Yes, ma'am, it was mine actually. I was just starting to work on this, so I had a little problem on how to correct the text. That's why it's written this way. I
No
was just
worries. Well,
trying it,
yeah. So
but
tell us
yeah.
your
So
idea.
so my idea was I always prefer a wallet which has a lot of pockets that I can separate my stuff easily in it. And also, I want a few areas that should be zipped where I can add my keys or my coins, and I should have separate areas where I can put my license or like the cards, and a separate area for the the bigger cache. So that's
Yeah.
why I opted for this option where there were many pockets in this.
Okay. Nice. Whose is this? I like it simple and I have more pockets because I used it. You're right. I know. This is a challenge for all of us, right? But then you have to also think about, how when the minute we put cards in, the wallet just starts getting thicker and thicker, right? And for women, it's not as much of a challenge as it is for men because they carry it in their pockets. Yeah, if only there was a nice slick design that could carry these wallets with many cards. Whose is this? Safety feature for card using RFID. Okay, nice, great. So thank you very much for for these lovely ideas. And yeah, that's how you come up with innovative ways to you know to find whether it's products or services. You keep that assumptions aside and you continue to develop. So a quick run through. We are coming almost to the end of the session. A quick run through on the thumb rules of design thinking. um, Focus on humans. Always focus on humans because it is a human centric approach. They have to be in the center of all your solutions. Find the right problem. Often ideas, however unique and fabulous they are, they fail because you're not able to identify the root of the problem, and that's why you have to keep digging. The 5 whys is one of the tools that you use. That keep digging. Don't just assume that if someone has said that, oh, I don't like to do something, or my shoes bite. For example, if you ask someone and someone's limping and they say, oh, these shoes are not good because I get a shoe bite. But the problem may not be in the shoes, it can be somewhere else. Like, for example, Just an example of myself I'll give, that for the longest time I would complain that my knees hurt. I'm a runner. I run marathons, and in the recent past, I would say my knees hurt, and I went to the doctors, and everyone said, there's not much of an issue. You have to keep, making sure that there are no knots, because your muscles tighten up. And I always kind of just, would brush it aside, saying, that's not the issue. But I have now realized, now that I'm actually started doing stretching, very specific areas, that it has helped a lot. My knees don't hurt anymore, or not as much as they did, because now I've actually understood what was the problem. It wasn't my knees, but it was my hamstrings that were too tight. So finding that right problem is the key to a successful design. Think of everything as a system. So it's not never always just one, which is why we have all the stakeholders in together when we brainstorm, because you address that solution from every aspect, for it to be executed. And always test your design decisions, which is why you iterate. You keep going out and testing it, and then you find out whether it works or doesn't work, and where does it need to be modified or changed. And you know never forget that we are not the users. When we are designing something, we are not the users. You have to, if something appeals to you, then you have to validate it and go to the actual user to see that does it appeal to that user also. So we've got 3 minutes. I'll quickly end with this very interesting case study that it's a fantastic example of design thinking and human-centric design. So in Netherlands, the municipal body, Netherlands has a very high percentage of senior citizens, and they have over 125,000 senior citizens that rely on the government sponsored meals. The government provides free meals to these senior citizens, and an estimated 60% of the senior population lives in assisted living areas with very poor nutritional facilities. So these meals are even more important to them. However, they found that 20% of them, in spite of the government providing these meals, 20% of these seniors were actually malnourished. So the municipality, what they did was they hired Hutch and Bloom. Hutch and Bloom is a design firm in the Netherlands, and they asked them to fix the menu. They just came and said that there are so many meals that we give out free, but there are still 20% of these seniors who are malnourished. So it's the menu that has to be fixed. Now, what Hutch and Bloom did is that they said, okay, we will apply design thinking, and we want to understand more about these senior citizens. So they went and they spoke to a lot of these senior citizens. They spoke to people who work in the kitchen of this service where people make the meals. They spoke to people who deliver the meals, and what they found out was that the senior citizens, they were fairly independent. While they lived in assisted areas, they were fairly independent, and they were embarrassed to accept government assistance. And they felt that they had no control over the food choices that were given to them. They were lonely. They didn't like eating alone, and they missed the seasonal food of their youth, because they had to rely, again, the government was giving them the meals, right? So they couldn't actually go to the market and get seasonal fruit, which they missed. And the workers showed no motivation, and they were bored because they were creating the same meal over and over again. In the same study, they also realized, the design company also realized, that these seniors, while they were living in assisted facilities, they what they did was that whatever food was delivered to them, then they would they would chop a little parsley, or they would chop some add some spices to the food, and mix that and then eat it, so it was more palatable for them. So the positive side of it was, which is that the seniors were responsible and they were capable of, doing some basic chores around their kitchen. And if they were given the choice, they enjoyed adding those seasonal fruits to their meals. In their own way they would customize their food, with spices and potatoes and vegetables. And the kitchen workers were actually, they did care for these people. It's just that they didn't know what to do and how to do a better job, because they were given these boring meals. They had the same ingredients that they could work with. So the team got together and they brainstormed and they said that, okay, let's treat the kitchen like a restaurant. The cooks can be the chefs. The vehicles that deliver can be the waiters. And the food would be, would be like a menu that they give. So what they did was that they went back and they redesigned the entire plan. They spoke to the chefs. They brainstormed with them and came up with a new menu. While the government gave them all the ingredients, the chefs had no outlet to show their creativity. So they started putting a new menu together. Someone who would come up with some great pasta recipe, or some burgers, or so they came up with this new menu. They changed the uniforms that they wore. They have often these delivery vehicles were driven by volunteers. So these volunteers were encouraged to interact with the senior citizens. And then and then they made a menu card. They made a website where the senior citizens could choose what meals they wanted for the week. They could read what were the dishes available, and they could pick and choose what would they want to be delivered. And the meals were, they were photographed well. There was a good description given. So every meal had a really appealing picture, and there was a description of what that meal, what were the ingredients, what was the style of cooking. And then it completely changed the whole plan, from just fixing a meal to the entire supply chain. And they went on to, with the whole packaging, the food menus, the service. The people who delivered would stop, and when they gave them the meals, they would chat with the senior citizens. And within the first week alone, they saw 500% increase in the meal orders, because suddenly the senior citizens felt like, people cared for them. It wasn't just about giving a free meal. The meal was sometimes cooked such that they could, microwave it and have it hot, because initially they were given these cooked. By the time the meals were delivered, they were cold. So the joy was brought back into having that meal, which was a big thing for these senior citizens, because twice, thrice a day they would be eating this. And that's how, the Good Kitchen used design thinking to revisit and redefine the problem. Which was initially said that fix the menu. And so we'll end up with, a quick flow of how would your design thinking plan look like. So identify the opportunity area and immerse. Redefine your problem statement. Make an ideation workshop with your team. Share your findings. Have ideation techniques and prioritization ideas. Plan for an MVP and then test it on the user. Uh, so that's a, a simple flow of how you can apply and come up with innovative, successful solutions using design thinking. And we come to the end of that session with this. So I'll just do a quick. Yes, so that's the end of the session. If you have any Q&A, we can do a quick round. I do believe we've gone 5 minutes over, and I'm sure there are other sessions lined up. So if there are any questions, we can happy to happy to answer.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Shamila. I think I'm sure some of them might have questions, and in fact, we do have few questions that we received earlier.
Sure.
All right, let me read out for you. It was from Sri and Shivdita. So Sri was asking, is there any solar panel that comes with very thick plastic?
I wouldn't know. I'm sorry, I wouldn't know about that.
All right.
That's more product oriented.
All right. And then the next question from Shivadita Singh. Mostly drains in India remain open, creating a lot of issues. Can we install solar panels there?
Yeah. So again, while the drains are open, the challenge is that solar panels are extremely expensive, and that's why they are always laid out in areas which are which are covered or have restricted access. If you put them on drains, it doesn't make it practically it doesn't make any sense, because that's a lot of investment. Putting them up on drains, which also means that a lot of miscreants have access to it. Things can get stolen because it's a piece of value, so it can get stolen. And plus, the drains are not constantly running with water. That the drains are also very seasonal, so it's in the monsoons, yes, the drains will have water, but again, it's not a practical solution to do it, because solar panels also need maintenance and cannot just be put in an area where they can be damaged, or it's too high an expense. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ms. Shamila. I hope it answers Ms. Shivadita's question. Anyone else have any questions for Ms. Shamila?
But at the same time, it's a great it's a great idea for enclosed societies, residential societies, where they have drains, and it'll help them generate power and cut down on their electricity bills, because now they're using the solar energy generated by these panels. So yeah, it's a great idea that can be implemented in areas with restricted human traffic.
Awesome.
Ma'am, I have a question. While we implement these ideas, we generally go to the social systems. So there are people who are not who will not accept these ideas as such. So their psychology also comes into play. Then there are other factors like regulations will be there. So how to balance all these aspects?
Yeah. So that's a challenge where which has to be, and you'll find these early adapters and people who resist in almost every service or product that we do. And it's a constant conversation that you have to keep them engaged. And in times where you find people who resist, you have to get these early adapters on board first. For any idea to be accepted to a larger thing, you have to focus. Your focus group in the first stage is the early adapters, those who have already bought your idea and who are on board. You get them, and they can be your ambassadors to cascade this further. So so the people who resist, they will come come on board in some point in time, but that's when these early adapters help you convert people who resist.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shivadita, for the awesome question. And thank you very much, Ms. Shamila, for very insightful answer.
Thank you.
I think now it's time to conclude the session. So with this, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who joined us today, and also our trainer, experienced trainer, Ms. Shamila Bijo, for Tata Consultancy Services. Thank you, Ms. Shamila. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend ahead.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.